A warm welcome to Diplomatic Channel. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amarachi Ubani. On the program, we'll take a look at the US and UK visa bans on certain Nigerians they say are behind electoral violence in the country. We'll be talking to former Nigerian Consul General to the United States and former Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi, on what this could mean for Nigeria-US-UK relations. Plus, Nigeria remains committed to supporting democracy in Africa, an assurance given by President Muhammadu Buhari to President Mark Christian Kabore of Burkina Faso during his visit to Nigeria. Finally, we'll be checking in on the situation in Mali. Ready? Diplomatic Channel begins right now.
A group of prominent government and UN leaders are calling on current world leaders to take action to strengthen the United Nations system. In an open letter titled A Time for Renewal, calling for a strengthened multilateral system, which was released on Friday, 49 former UN and government officials from around the world expect the 75th anniversary of the UN to lead to a stronger, more accountable and inclusive multilateral system. US President Donald Trump has expressed support for a proposed deal by Chinese smartphone app TikTok to cooperate with American tech giant Oracle. Last weekend, ByteDance filed a proposal with the US administration to make Oracle, an American multinational computer technology corporation headquartered in California, its technology partner in the country to resolve security concerns. ByteDance says the proposal does not involve the selling of its business and technology. Finally, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani says the United States faces defeat in its move to reimpose sanctions on Tehran, as Washington declared all UN sanctions on Iran had been restored. In a televised speech, President Rouhani said America is approaching a certain defeat in its sanctions move. It faced defeat, a negative response from the international community. Iran has dismissed the U.S. sanctions move as void and illegal, and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres told the Security Council on Saturday that he cannot take any action on the U.S. declaration because there would be uncertainty on the issue.
Welcome back. The Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has responded to the governments of the United States and the UK on imposing visa restrictions on individuals who undermine democratic process or organize election-related violence during elections, as they claim. And this stems from statements by both countries that has riled some Nigerians and earned praise in some quarters.
Over the last 20 years, elections in Nigeria have been monitored by the international community, sometimes from individual countries such as the United States and the UK, or as an international body such as the European Union. The purpose has always been to present to the international community Nigeria's readiness to allow the will of the people to show that the elections are free and fair and free of irregularities, at least on the side of the government. Many a times, these observers release initial reports of their observations during the elections, and after elections are announced, their overall observation. The government is expected to read the report and perhaps look into concerns raised in them. 2 months before the last presidential election, the US and UK released statements on the upcoming election. In it, the US government said it was paying close attention to actions of individuals who interfere in the democratic process or instigate violence against the civilian population before, during, or after the elections. It said, "We will not hesitate to consider consequences, including visa restrictions for those found to be responsible for election-related violence or undermining the democratic process. Under U.S. immigration law, certain violations may also lead to restrictions on family members." As for the United Kingdom, its statement said, "Our monitors will in particular be looking out for any attempts to encourage or use violence to influence the elections, including on social media. We would like to remind all Nigerians that where the UK is aware of such attempts, this may have consequences for individuals. These could include their eligibility to travel to the UK, their ability to access UK-based funds, or lead to prosecution under international law." Both countries still express their commitment to Nigeria's democracy. Fast forward to September the 14th, 2020, when the U.S. State Department released a statement on imposing visa restrictions on Nigerians responsible for undermining the democratic process. Once again, the U.S. condemned acts of violence, intimidation, or corruption that harmed Nigerians and undermined Nigeria's democratic process. It recalled the statement it made in January 24, 2019, in which it had said it would consider consequences, including visa restrictions for individuals responsible for undermining the Nigerian democratic process or for organizing election-related violence. It also recalled that in July 2019, it had announced the imposition of visa restrictions on Nigerians who undermined the February and March 2019 elections, and then announced that the Secretary of State was imposing additional visa restrictions on individuals for their actions surrounding the November 2019 Kogi and Bayelsa state elections and in the run-up to the September and October 2020 Edo and Ondo state elections. These individuals have so far operated with impunity at the expense of the Nigerian people and have undermined democratic principles. It, however, said the actions were specific to certain individuals and not directed at the Nigerian people, and it did not name the individuals involved. A day later, the United Kingdom government threatened to impose visa ban, carry out asset, or even prosecute under international law Nigerians over election-related activities in the country. It said it would take the action against individuals who have been identified as being responsible for violence during the upcoming governorship elections in Edo and Ondo states. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Friday released a statement on the government's response to the visa restrictions by the US and UK governments regarding the elections in Edo and Ondo states. The statement highlighted that the responsibility for the conduct of elections in Nigeria solely resides with the Independent National Electoral Commission and state independent electoral commissions. The federal government, and especially the president, is committed to providing all necessary logistic, financial, and security to the electoral process. It also said it should be noted that there are ample provisions in our laws to sanction violators and perpetrators of electoral violence and fraud. It would be considered disrespectful of the sovereignty of Nigeria for any outside authority to sit in judgment over the conduct of our citizens and apply punitive measures such as visa restriction unilaterally. It said that while it appreciated the support and encouragement of international partners such as the EU, it called on partners like the US and the UK to cooperate with Nigeria's relevant agencies by providing them whatever concrete evidence of observed misconduct to allow Nigeria's laws and regulations take their course.
While Nigeria and the US and the UK continue to express solidarity for one another, Nigeria says she hopes elections will be without interference and violence, but is the question of sovereignty a valid argument, as revealed in the statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? And does the international community have the right to impose visa and travel ban on Nigeria, especially as regards the elections? Let's bring in Ambassador Joe Keshi, a former Consul General to the United States and a former Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with plenty of years of experience at the Ministry and with Foreign Affairs and Relations. He's in Abuja right now. Ambassador Keshi, thank you for joining us on the program.
Good evening, and thank you for having me again.
First off, let's get your thoughts on these statements from the US government and from the UK government. The US already imposing visa and travel restrictions on certain individuals, it says, have been involved in electoral violence, and the UK threatening to impose not just a visa and travel restriction, but a freezing of assets.
Amarachi, you will recall that I think it was 2015 or 2016, the U.S., I believe, first threatened to impose sanctions on those who either initiated or partake in violence during the general election of that year. You recall that we had a conversation in which I criticized...
Yeah, that was in January last year, actually.
Yeah, the United States. No, the presidential election before then. You remember, that was Senator Kerry. You recall he made a couple of visits here.
Yeah.
One of those visits, he actually threatened that sanctions will be imposed. Some of the elements in government today applauded that statement, in case we have forgotten. And so the question is not really exactly whether it's right or wrong for them to impose sanctions. The question really is the way we conduct our own affairs that enables people to trample upon our own sovereignty and begin to treat us like a banana republic of a sort. And as the Edo election had eventually turned out, there was no violence or the kind of violence that was expected. So you begin to wonder, where exactly did they get this impression that there was going to be such a huge violence in Edo? I guess most people do know that diplomats on the ground also report, and quite often they report from two sources, three sources. They report from conversations with the people of the country, they report from what they see in the media, and they report also from talking to the actors, some of the actors involved. And these are what they collate together and send to their home government that enable them to make that, the decision. So I guess that they had this impression that Edo and to some extent possibly Ondo would be very bloody, and they thought that they needed to step in for whatever reason, to help Nigeria to come to its senses.
You don't think that this could have anything to do with previous elections? You mentioned the election before the last one, the election before the last presidential election, where John Kerry came into Nigeria. I think this was 2-3 weeks before that presidential election. He was here. You don't think that this is based off of things that have happened in the past? And even last year, before the presidential elections in March, the US government had also, alongside the UK and even the EU, also mentioned, there will be sanctions for people who perpetrate violence during elections. But given that the US has been imposing a number of restrictions, visa restrictions on Nigeria, Nigerian citizens in the past 1 year, it's like they keep finding fault, with Nigeria, finding reasons to restrict travel to the US.
Amarachi, I know we all want to sound patriotic. It is not that they keep finding reasons for want to impose sanctions on Nigeria. It is that Nigeria continues to give them reasons to impose sanctions on Nigeria. Nigeria and Nigerians continue to act in ways and manners that allow these people to decide that the best way to treat us is to impose sanctions. So, to a large extent, yes, we're a sovereign nation, but we're also part of the global community. We must realize that.
Is the question of sovereignty valid in this argument, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs has said, about imposing these restrictions? The Minister of Foreign Affairs had, in a statement, said it would be disrespectful of the sovereignty of Nigeria for any outside authority to sit in judgment over the conduct of our citizens and apply punitive measures such as visa restriction unilaterally. What do you make of the Minister of Foreign Affairs' comments, especially this response to these restrictions that have been imposed and the ones that are pending?
Well, the ministry is right in what it said, and should be expected from the Minister of Foreign Affairs in defense of the country. Yes, it's disrespectful, but again, Amarachi, I make the point very, very clearly. Nobody will come into your house just like that, to use the Nigerian language, and begin to insult you and begin to disrespect you. But if you place yourself in a position where people disrespect you, if you place yourself in a position where people question your integrity and your behavior, you don't actually blame those people. But I strongly believe that we need to look inwards and begin to say, look, Amarachi, do you know how many electoral offenses have been committed in this country since 1999? How many have ended up in court? If we had been taking people to court for violating electoral rules, if we've been taking people to court for causing violence in this country, perhaps by now some sanity would have returned to the system.
Putting a lot of blame heavily on the Nigerian government with the way it's conducted itself and conducted the elections, giving leeway for the international community to impose these restrictions and to treat Nigerians the way they're going about it. But considering that there are no perfect elections, and I know that no international body comes to validate elections in either the UK or in the US or even in Europe, don't you think that, the hospitality given by Nigeria, provided by Nigeria, sort of is being misused and disrespected? And in the words of one of the governors whose state is affected by this visa ban and the restrictions, that you don't think that these governments are undermining elections in Nigeria?
When you invite foreign observers to invite your election, what do you think you are doing? When you collect money from foreign countries to run your election, what do you think you are doing? When foreign countries energizes and empowers a lot of NGOs to be able to do a lot of things, during election, what do you think that we are contributing to? Look, we have placed our sovereignty at risk by making those decisions. Why can't we fund our election 100% and not dependent on anybody? And in that case, nobody will insult us. Nobody will write any damaging report against us. You understand what I'm saying? So the point, we invited them. They wrote the first report. Look, every report written after every election in Nigeria is negatively against the country. And yet we keep inviting them back. Shouldn't we have stopped to say, listen, look, by the way, this is not just applicable to Nigeria. In fact, the rest of the continent today should come together and say, given what is going on in the United States, where the Postmaster General has virtually dismantled the post office in order to help, a party in the election, shouldn't we Africans also demand that we want to monitor and observe elections in the United States? We opened the floodgate for them to come to our region, to our country, to the continent to monitor election. And we are very happy to have them. So now that they have done this and they think that it's and they're abusing, to use your words, they are abusing the privilege. I think we need to change our strategy. We either make a decision, two decisions we need to make. Number one, to attempt to conduct our elections as much as possible with less rancor. Number two, to manage our own affairs and stop inviting observers to come and monitor us and write a report about our behavior during any election. That's the way you protect your sovereignty. That's the way you can tell the world that you are matured enough to handle your own problems. And then we stop taking, look, once you stop taking funding from them, once they stop funding your NGOs, probably they won't be interested in coming to monitor your elections anymore.
Finally, Ambassador, since we're still on the issue of U.S. visas, the U.S. government is set to be reviewing some of the categories of migrant visa restrictions imposed on Nigerians in January this year, as the federal government says it has met 90%. The federal government, I mean the Nigerian government, says it's met 90% compliance level in information sharing on lost and stolen documents and other security concerns. This was discussed at the U.S.-Nigeria Forum during the week. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the government has put in a lot of effort to meeting those requirements. But now the ban is being revisited. Is this good news for Nigeria? Is this, commendable effort?
Very good news for Nigeria. Commendable effort, Amarachi. But doesn't that strike you that it validates everything I have said to you? They have to force us. They have to impose sanctions for us to do the right thing, or for us to do exactly what they required of us initially. The failure of us to respond at that time led to the imposition of sanctions. And now we've gotten our acts together. We've done well over probably 80% of what was required of us. The question, which again, this is why I said, let's look inwards. The question is, why didn't we do it in the first instance and wait until sanctions was imposed on us before we did it? It's good news. And I just hope and pray that moving forward, this is the way we need to go, that we are a part of the global community. And if there's some role we have to play to ensure that our country is respected, our country is seen as a functioning democracy, and there's a lot we can do to make that happen in this country. I think it will pay everybody in this country if we all work towards that goal of ensuring that election is not all about, it's not about power. It's not, democracy is not all about elections. There's so many other things that needs to be involved.
Yeah, we need to strengthen democratic institutions. Ambassador Joe Keshi, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you again for joining us on Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you.
It was just a one-day visit, but it seemed enough for Burkina Faso President Marc Christian Kabore, who stepped into Nigeria for just a few hours on Thursday, September 17th. His meeting was with President Muhammadu Buhari, and it concerned legislative elections coming up in his country in November. This year, President Kabore chairs the Economic Trade and Liberalization Scheme of the ECOWAS. He said he had to discuss sub-regional issues with his Nigerian counterparts, which include the convening of a joint commission meeting between Nigeria and Burkina Faso, reported trade difficulties among Nigeria, Ghana, the Republic of Benin, Niger Republic, and the way forward. President Kabore commended President Buhari for the strong leadership and support displayed in his capacity as chairman of COVID-19 response in Africa. They also discussed elections in both countries. Nigeria prides itself in supporting democratic processes in African countries, considering its big brother role, which helped most become independent from colonial leadership. Also, Burkina Faso is the direct recipient of any instability in Mali, which the ECOWAS is currently determined to resolve. Nigeria once mediated in a territorial dispute with Mali alongside Ghana, which has led to lessening of tensions between the two countries. And now to the political crisis in Mali. ECOWAS leaders met in the Ghanaian capital, Accra, to discuss the country's political future as concerns the transitional government. It was attended by at least 8 presidents and Nigeria's Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. The regional body had given Mali's military junta a deadline of September 15th to appoint a new civilian president and prime minister. That deadline passed with the junta only saying it will appoint a leader of a transitional government who could be a civilian or a military leader. During its meeting in Ghana, President Nana Akufo-Addo said there is urgent need to resolve the political crisis in Mali due to the threat it poses to peace and security in West Africa and beyond. But the junta says it has started the process of naming an interim president. It announced a plan that would allow a military leader to oversee an 18-month transitional period. Apart from imposing sanctions on Mali, ECOWAS leaders have not announced any consequences for the junta failing to meet its deadline. Sanctions earlier announced include border closures and the suspension of financial flows, though these were eased so they could not hit civilians. Mali is a country with a population of about 20 million people. It's been politically unstable since 2012, when soldiers opposed to the response by the government to the separatist insurgency by Tuareg rebels north of the country staged a coup. Since then, the political unrest in the country has served as a magnet for Al-Qaeda and ISIL-linked groups who have launched attacks on other West African nations from there, drawing concerns from the 15-member regional ECOWAS. The recent unrest in the country follows the worsening security situation created by extremist Islamic groups who have leveraged the Tuareg insurgency and local militia that have banded to quell the chaos. And this is where we end the program this week. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Thanks for watching.